What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Historic Labs channel. This is the Journey to Launch, Part 6, our first formula. In this video, I'm going to go over why we chose certain ingredients, what came about, how did we end up choosing some ingredients, why did we kick some out, and a little bit of the clinical side and the benefits of these ingredients. So let's get into it. Let me make myself smaller here, throw myself in the corner. So what was our goal with our first formula? Our goal was these 5 things: performance, endurance, pump, focus, and energy. We call these the 5 pillars in our formula. As you can see in the picture here on our website, you can see them kind of outlined on the labels here. See, performance, endurance, energy, focus, and pump. That's kind of our baseline for each formula. Each formula is made off of that baseline. So which ingredients kind of gear us towards that baseline? And these formulas here, these are our revamp formulas, so they're the newest ones. But when it comes to our first formula, some of the things that we focused on are in these. Some of the things we focused on is in this formula here. And I'll go over it in detail. So here is our label for our first formula. If you guys have any questions about labels as well, that's also in our series. So you can take a look at it if you have any questions on labels and then how to make labels. I also gave a shout out to our current label core label over there in Florida. But this is pretty much what a label should look like. You have your warning, suggested use, obviously the FDA statement, letting you know that we're not making any claims. Barcode for UPC, just in case you sell wholesale. A couple things that obviously we care about. Our stuff is manufactured in the US, making sure that the facility is GMP or CGMP, which means current GMP certified and practices. But the meat and potatoes here is going to be, so we called their first pre-workout Mount Olympus pre-workout. We ended up taking a Greek theme at first. That was kind of the goal. We ended up pivoting because Mount Olympus was taken, so we couldn't get the domain. I was trying to get the trademark for it, but somebody else kind of had it. So we ended up switching it up to something else. But in our first formula that we released, and we were allowed to sell it for the first batch. However, we use our labels to kind of demonstrate our creativity and demonstrate our representation of that culture. So even down to the icons. So you see the Spartan helmet, you see the wing foot, the lightning, the target, and the pump. So we kind of use even our icons to represent that culture, and also our background. You kind of see the background here. And the most important thing here is the supplement facts. So we're going to go over the supplement facts. This pre-workout was 25 servings, about 16.8 grams per scoop. And here's some of the ingredients. So we had citrulline malate, beta-alanine, rose glycer pump, or glycerol powder, alpha GPC, agmatine sulfate, lion's mane, caffeine, and black pepper extract. So we'll go over in detail what some of these do and why we chose them and how they align with the performance, endurance, energy, focus, and pump. Other ingredients: silicon dioxide, obviously not trying to let it clump or get all moldy with any introduction of water. Naturally artificially flavored, so through citric acid, sucralose, and ACE-K, or also known as acetylfulmin potassium. We did use a coloring for the first batch of pre-workout. So the Zeus was blue raspberry lemonade. We did use a blue dye on that one. Then we had Poseidon, and we used also a blue, but it was kind of green looking. And then 6 months later, after we released these two, we ended up releasing our third flavor, which was the Hades, and we use Red 40. But we moved away from all the dye stuff, so we completely took it out. We still use some synthetic flavoring, mainly because it does really well. I think maybe in the future we might move towards a natural flavoring, but it's just so hard to mask mainly the lion's mane. The lion's mane mushroom is a little bit harder to mask, so the synthetic flavoring does a better job. And when we upload, so we ended up taking a trip to our newest manufacturer. We'll upload a video, and there's a conversation in there with one of the flavoring chemists, scientists. I don't know, I call him the madman or mad scientist. I think his name's Steve too, actually, just like me. But he goes over why certain things are harder to flavor and some tips and tricks that help him be able to flavor some of this stuff. But this specific first pre-workout was all made by NutriCaps. And I go over our relationship with NutriCaps and why we moved and all that stuff in the series. So if you want to learn more about that, you can check out the other videos as well. But this is pretty much the supplement facts here. And these are all the ingredients that we used. And then we put a QR code just to get people to the website. And then the only patent ingredient that we used was Glycer Pump by Pinnacle Labs, which is your glycerol powder. But now we use a different one. We use Hydropine by NMB Nutrition. So first ingredient on there, citrulline malate. We have 6,000 milligrams citrulline malate on, we have 6,000 milligrams of citrulline malate in our first formula. And we do that with our new ones as well. But some of the benefits here in this study, it goes over, I want to point this out. So they concluded that the use of citrulline malate might be useful to increase athletic performance in high intensity anaerobic exercise with short rest times to relieve post-exercise muscle soreness. Thus, athletes undergoing intensive preparation involving a high level of training or in competitive events might profit from citrulline malate. So citrulline malate pretty much enhances athletic performance, boosts nitric oxide, helps with endurance. That's one of our pillars there. Reduce muscle soreness and also aid in muscle strength. Next is going to be the beta-alanine. Beta-alanine is pretty straightforward. So here we only use 2,500 milligrams. And obviously a lot of you guys are going to ask, why did we use 2,500 milligrams and not the recommended 3,200 milligrams? Here I would say is, I think one of my, I would say I call it a mistake because it was trying to appease the market, but all sides of the market. I wanted beta-alanine in there because people like to feel the tingles. However, you have people that don't like the tingles. And so I kind of tried to meet a middle ground. So I cut it to 2,500. There's no clinical research that talks about 2,500. So that's why I call it a mistake, because my intention was to satisfy both sides of the spectrum of the market, but with no backing from science. So I think I fucked that up. My bad. So I left that at 2,500. However, there are benefits for beta-alanine at the 3,200 milligram dose or 6,400 milligram dose. It helps buffer lactic acid, greater power output, right? Performance, another pillar there. And overall, it helps you train longer. The thing with beta-alanine, though, is you have to be very good with it. You have to take it every single day for 28 days straight to see the benefits. So keep that in mind. Next is going to be betaine anhydrous. So here I'm going to point this out. Betaine anhydrous has also been shown to have potential benefits for exercise performance and muscle strength. Some studies have suggested that betaine supplementation may improve endurance, reduce fatigue, and enhance muscle power and strength. What is betaine anhydrous? It's beet powder, pretty much. And betaine anhydrous also helps with hydration in the cells, increases your pump, helps prevent dehydration, lower risk of cardiovascular disease, and then overall power, endurance, and muscle growth. I think this is one of, I would argue it's one of the best supplements out there on top. I think it's like, I would say top 5, maybe. I think creatine is up there. A couple of the ingredients I'm going to talk about in here, alpha GPC. But I think if you don't take pre-workout, or you're not like a pre-workout or a stim junkie type of person, I think taking this and creatine on its own is actually pretty good. I would vouch for that. But overall, betaine anhydrous, good. Next is going to be glycerol powder, or in other words, some people call it the hyperhydration of cells. So improvements to performance include increased endurance time to exhaustion by up to 24% or a 5% increase in power or work. Why does that matter? Well, one, you can have more reps. You obviously get dehydrated slower and reach exhaustion slower, so that's a good thing. That extra rep can also help, obviously, with muscle growth. And with glycerol, we specifically use the patent version called Glycer Pump. Glycer Pump was supposed to really help out with the clumping aspect. That's why 65% pure glycerol, because glycerol tends to become water. Glycerol tends to clump up and it does better in liquid form. That's why they use 65% when it comes to powder. Other benefits of glycerol: helps with the pumps, allows to boost endurance. Specifically, this product was shown not to clump compared to other forms of glycerol. So Glycer Pump did a really good job. We ended up moving away from Glycer Pump just because Hydroprime was seen to be better. Next ingredient on this list is, I think, one of my favorite, alpha GPC, which is, let's try to say it, alpha glycerol phosphorycholine. Alpha glycerol phosphorycholine. Whoa, that one's tough to say. But alpha GPC for short helps with focus and power output. This study, I think, looked into increases in growth hormone, which is actually a really cool benefit. But the main purpose was to figure out how it does with power, and it was ingested at a 600 milligram dose with alpha GPC, but the pan version called alpha size. We use 600 as well, and then we switched over to NMB Nutrition's Genius Pure, which is a 90% pure alpha GPC. And when I tell you it's 90% pure, it is 90% pure. It is one of the best ingredients in our new formula. But for this one, we use 600 generic milligrams of alpha GPC. Let me play this video of Dr. Huberman talking about alpha GPC and the doses.
Which is, at least in the United States, is sold over the counter, typically is taken in dosages of about 300 to 600 milligrams. That's a single dose, or have been shown to do a number of things that for some of you might be beneficial. One is to enhance power output. So if you're engaging in something like shot put throwing or resistance training or sprinting or something where you have to generate a lot of power, maybe you're doing rock climbing, but you're working on a particular aspect of your rock climbing that involves generating a lot of force, a lot of power, well then, in theory, alpha GPC could be beneficial to you. For the cognitive effects, the dosages are much higher, up to 1,200 milligrams daily, divided into 3 doses of 400 milligrams is what the studies that I was able to find show or used. The effects on cognitive decline are described as notable. Notable meaning several studies showed a significant but modest effect in offsetting cognitive decline, in particular in older populations and some populations even with some reported neurodegeneration. Power output was notable.
So overall, alpha GPC is pretty much like a hard hitter. It's considered, some people call it nootropic, but if it helps with power output and it makes you focus, I think it's one of the best ingredients that we have in our arsenal. Next, so the next ingredient in our pre-workout, which I didn't really see a lot of in pre-workouts, is lion's mane mushroom. So what does lion's mane mushroom do? It helps with cognitive function, mental clarity, mood. It helps with mood and stress reducing effects. It also helps with exercise fatigue. So it kind of becomes this like synergistic thing on top of the other ingredients that we have that also aids in our 5 pillars: performance, endurance, focus, energy, and pump. So lion's mane falls under focus, but also endurance because it helps with fatigue. In this study, they actually did what's called the Stroop test after some people ingested the lion's mane. Let me see the results. There we go. When first considering speed movement, it was highlighted that this was only observed on a singular task and was not seen in any other task nor global speed, performance, or domain. Nevertheless, this is a novel finding to the area where, although previous enhancements to cognitive decline have been observed, no effects on speed of performance have been seen. So pretty much they outline that this helps with singular tasks. What are you doing in the gym? You're moving and curling one dumbbell and switching. You're doing a task. So this can obviously be beneficial with doing that task. Most likely when it comes to other types of multitask things, I would say the anti-fatigue properties are probably going to help, and the stress reducing properties will also help. But overall, let's take a look at the Stroop test. So Stroop test describes the response delay that is caused when an automatic process like reading and understanding of the meaning of a word competes with a more deliberate task like naming a word's font color. So this is pretty much what they did. So if you were to read this first line here, green, yellow, red, black, red, green. The colors associated with the word, so it's easy to read. But once you start switching up the colors and the words and mixing them around, for example, see here you would want to say red, black, green, red, yellow, black. Some people would get stuck or mess up and say green, yellow, red, black, red, green. See, like I was a little slow. I think you could do it both ways actually. So you can read the word but don't say the color, and then the opposite, say the color and don't read the word. I think that one's harder actually. Let's try the color but not the word. Green, yellow, red, black, red, green. It is kind of hard. Like if I had maybe like 15 of these, it'd probably be pretty hard. But overall, lion's mane also helps with let's see. I know I read something about Alzheimer's disease stuff. Oh, here it is. Has shown cognitive improvements following chronic supplementation in older adults with diagnosed mild cognitive impairment and mild Alzheimer's disease and no cognitive impairments when considering mechanisms that may underlie its effect. So pretty much it also helps with some impairments of or some cognitive impairments. And that's pretty cool. That means you're getting a daily dose of lion's mane every time you take this. So you're getting those benefits as well. Next is going to be caffeine and hydrous. So we put it to 250 milligrams here for caffeine. It's pretty much just caffeine. And caffeine and hydrous, it's obviously a well-known stimulant. It increases power output and workload, increases endurance, reaction time, and helps suppress appetite. The help suppress appetite, I don't think a lot of people use pre-workout that has caffeine for that reason. I'm pretty sure people mainly use it for the power output and the energy and feeling the euphoric energy of like this like burst of energy, and you want to just get going. Some people obviously take 350, 450 milligrams of caffeine. We launched this pre-workout at 250. We weren't targeting like the high stem kind of community, if you want to say, or high stem junkie community. So we stuck with that. And then finally, to top off this entire formula, the black pepper extract. That is mainly used for to help with absorption. So black pepper extract, 10 milligrams was just for absorption. Helps break down other ingredients and prolong their benefits. Helps with bioavailability. And that's pretty much it. All right, let's sum it all up. So first formula. This is pretty much what we did. This is the ingredients that we used and why. And our mantra, not our mantra, but pretty much we use our 5 pillars to make each formula. We want to make sure that we're hitting the wickets, which these are this is like our baseline, right? This is what we apply our research and design to, which is performance, endurance, energy, focus, and pump. Every formula is going to give you those 5 things. However, some formulas will give you more endurance. Some formulas will give you more energy. Some formula will give you more focus and more pump and more performance. You get the gist of it. We went with the Greek theme, right? For our first formula, we used the gods' names for flavors. So we had Zeus. Poseidon was guava lime. To be honest, it wasn't a hard hitter. We ended up having a couple bottles that we had to throw away, obviously, because they have a 2-year shelf life. So we had to get rid of the ones that were expired. And then the Hades was watermelon cherry coconut. For some reason, everyone loves that. I'm not a huge coconut fan, but people love it. When you're formulating your supplement, make sure to ask your manufacturer a lot of questions. Ask all the questions. There's no dumb questions. If they don't get back to you, ask it again or call somebody else, because you're paying them a lot of money up front. They should be able to give you good advice and set you up for success, because you want to go back to them and keep buying from them. So if you have bad customer service, go to another manufacturer. Trust me. Save yourself the 6 months, 8 months, save yourself the headache, save yourself everything. And then remember, not all formulas are going to make everyone happy. That is something you have to remember. Someone's going to hate that it has beta-alanine. Someone's going to hate that it's flavored a certain way with synthetic flavoring. Someone's going to hate that it only has 6,000 milligrams of citrulline malate. Someone's going to hate that it has lion's mane. Doesn't matter. Be creative, stick to your guns, and have fun. It doesn't matter. Just have fun. Well, that sums it up for this video. Check out the description below. Use code HISTORY for 10% off. Make sure to like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell for more historic content.